Good evening, everyone. This is Tracy Gibbs, Chief Science Officer for LifeWise. We have another session of In the Lab tonight. Today, instead of probably in the lab, I think we're going to be more in the classroom because we are going to do a little bit of studying. Tonight's topic is dietary supplements and how they differ from pharmaceutical drugs. I chose this topic for a very specific reason. The most frequently asked question I get, and probably the most frequently asked question I've gotten throughout my entire career, can I take your supplement with my prescription drug? I get that question, no joking, no exaggeration. In fact, if I got on Facebook Messenger, I bet you it would be on there at least 4 or 5 times. And what it tells me is that, number one, I'm not doing a good enough job educating people about the differences between dietary supplements, and not just dietary supplements, but in particular LifeWise supplements that are literally food-based. But I think people have a general misunderstanding of what a dietary supplement is and what a prescription drug is, and the difference between the two and why that question gets asked all the time. So we're going to study that tonight, and I'm going to go ahead and answer that question in the legal, non-liable way that we are taught and trained, and that the FDA says that we have to answer that question. So the question is, can I take your supplement with my prescription drug? The non-liable way that we are supposed to answer that question is, please consult with your physician when taking a dietary supplement combined with your prescription drug. That's not answering the question though, is it? And let me start off by saying, even though that's the legal and the non-liable way, let me start off by just saying the truth. What a stupid, asinine answer that is to give someone. Simply because what physician anywhere would know anything about a particular brand of dietary supplements? They don't. They're not trained. They're not educated. That would be like if somebody called me and said, hey, Dr. Gibbs, what's the high trading stock for the day? And I'd be like, I don't know. Call your mechanic and ask him what the high trading stock is for the day. That's exactly what that statement says. Why don't you go talk to someone who knows nothing about your dietary supplement? That's what we're taught to say, and that's what we're told by lawyers we have to say. But again, that just goes to show you how stupid our system is. In fact, can I take your supplement with my prescription drug is in and of itself a dumb question. And I know that people are going to say, oh, there's no such thing as a dumb question. Well, sometimes there are, even though that's the most commonly asked question. And here's why. Let's break down the word dietary supplement. Dietary supplement. Let's reverse those words. Supplement, dietary, or a supplement to your diet. What is a supplement? Something that adds to or enhances, and then diet or dietary. Something that you eat or ingest on a regular basis. Okay? A dietary supplement is something that supplements your diet. Dietary supplements in and of themselves under our FDA laws are regulated under good manufacturing practices the same as foods. Why? Because they are foods. You don't need a prescription to take a dietary supplement. There are no known drug contraindications to dietary supplements, and I will touch on that further. I know people are out there saying, no, that's not true. Yes, it is true, and I'll get the science later. Trust me. I wrote a book on it called My Home Pharmacy. The last chapter of that book has over 250 known drug herb contraindications. And when I say drug herb contraindications, that's what we have to call them, but it's actually like the herbs are supporting the drugs and they don't want you to take them together because they do similar things. Only one has toxic side effects, the other doesn't. So let's get back to that definition of a dietary supplement. It literally is just something that supports what you eat every day. Let me give you some examples. I'm going to give you the 3 most common, what doctors will say are contraindications or things that you should worry about when taking a supplement and a drug. The 3 that they're taught are completely wrong. They're taught, number 1, if you're on any heart medication, please be wary about dietary supplements. Now, if you ask them specifically why, they couldn't tell you why. Most physicians couldn't tell you why. Maybe the ones that actually listened and learned from the CEU credits from the pharmaceutical company's training about contraindications for heart medications, they would learn that they're taught anyway that curcumin is a contraindication for a drug medication. And it's not. It's actually has nothing to do with most drug medications, has a little bit to do with blood thinners, but not much, because actually if you get down in the science, they work on two totally different pathways. Prescription blood thinners kill or destroy platelets, which is a clotting agent of your blood. It's the third element of your blood, the third solid of your blood next to white blood cells and red blood cells are platelets. Curcumin, on the other hand, can act as a blood thinner when there is severe trauma and inflammation. What happens when you punch somebody, or you bump your leg into something, or you're in a car accident, you get smashed up against a windshield? That trauma causes inflammation, and those inflammation markers cause fibrinogen to develop. Nothing to do with platelets. And fibrinogen help your body in clotting blood in trauma situations. So that's the science behind curcumin, is it has nothing to do with thinning your blood from platelets. It has everything to do with helping the body's inflammation markers, is the technical legal way to say it, by controlling fibrinogen production. Okay? Not related to the drug at all, the blood thinners at all that cause your platelets to not stick together and are destroyed. Totally crazy, but that's what they're taught. Another one is bromelain. They'll tell you not to take, if you're on any opioids or things like that, don't take bromelain, which is crazy because bromelain is a known anti-inflammatory and known painkiller, and there's zero contraindications when on opioids. I think the only reason they tell you that is they don't want you to take something that alleviates pain naturally. They'd rather put you on a prescription drug. And then the last and most common one is Narangin. When you're on cholesterol medication, you're not supposed to take Narangin. And they tell you grapefruits. They don't tell you Narangin. Sorry, doctors will tell you grapefruits. And that's kind of the crazy thing, because Narangin is found in like 40 different foods that we eat. It's found in oranges. It's found in lemons and limes. Almost anything citrus, including things like peppermint, lemon balm tea, chamomile tea contains Narangin. And yet, when was the last time your cholesterol medication doctor told you not to drink chamomile tea? They all think, oh, it's wonderful for cholesterol levels, but they forgot that it contains Narangin as well. They don't know that it contains Narangin, so you can't blame them. But again, the only reason that it would interfere in your cholesterol medication is because your cholesterol medication blocks certain liver functions, and Narangin actually protects the liver from toxins. And cholesterol medications are toxic, and so Narangin actually protects your liver from those medications. Instead of asking, can I take my supplements with my prescription drug? And many of you have actually asked that question. My answer is, and it always has been, I don't know. Can you eat food with your prescription medication? If you can eat food with your prescription drug, or if you can eat while you are on a prescription drug, which means everybody can, then of course you can take a dietary supplement when you're on your prescription drug, simply because dietary supplements are food. People have this weird thought process, and it's been ingrained in us to think that dietary supplements, when combined with prescription drugs, can be harmful. And there's nothing actually further from the truth, and I'm going to read some statistics, again, right from NIH, PubMed. We're going to be quoting the National Library of Medicine today. We're going to be quoting the National Poison Control Data Center. So many statistics here that's just going to blow your mind. First and foremost, let's talk about this misnomer that dietary supplements can be dangerous when taken with prescriptions. Number one, not true at all. Let's start with this statistic. By the way, I went all the way back to 2015. So I almost went 10 years back in time looking at each and every year to see if these statistics were accurate or not, because I didn't want you guys just thinking I was pulling a random year. The last report I have is the 2023 annual report of the National Poison Data System. This is NPDS. How many deaths were caused by foods and or food-like substances, including dietary supplements, in 2023? Food poisoning caused 3,000 deaths. Other food-related incidences were 0. So food can kill you, I guess, if it's rotten, okay? Not fermented. Fermented food's good for you. But if food contains harmful bacteria, 3,000 deaths a year. I'm not going to underrate that and say that that's not substantial. but it's not really substantial. I mean, people are all in uproar about firearm deaths, and firearm-related deaths only killed 19,000 people in the United States. Again, the outrage will be like, oh, that's 19,000 too many. It's still a minuscule amount to some of the other data I'm going to read to you here later that'll just blow your mind. But either way, yes, people do die from food. About 3,000 people die every year from food. And by the way, this number hasn't changed all the way back to like 2015. It's right at around 3,000 deaths every year from food poisoning. This is harmful bacteria. And dietary supplements, by the way, I went all the way back to 2015, zero related deaths. And by the way, on this same report, almost all of the deaths that are reported to the National Poison Control Center are all around prescription drugs. And they've even broken it down to where the number one, it's crazy. It's acetaminophen, isoprene, ibuprofen, salicylate, fentanyl. Fentanyl's below acetaminophen, you guys. Can you believe that? It's not funny. All we're hearing on the media is all these fentanyl deaths. Nobody's talking about acetaminophen deaths. Why? Because it's an over-the-counter. And you're not going to believe, remember I said 3,000 deaths from food poisoning? You guys, deaths from drugs? I don't mean drug misuse. And I don't mean, by the way, street drugs. I'm talking about the regular use of prescription drugs. You're more likely to die from a prescription drug than you are from a firearm. And there's no coalitions, anti-Second Amendment coalitions. Let's move on. Let's talk about food here and what dietary supplements are. A lot of people use this word, and I love this word. They call it like herbal remedies. It sounds like they're saying witchcraft or something like that. When people say, oh, but herbs are dangerous. Do you guys know what an herb is? Do any of you eat garlic or put like pepper on your food? Or do you put basil or rosemary when you eat Italian food? Do you use turmeric in your curries? That's an herb. You guys, those are herbs, okay? Peppermint, chamomile, rose hips, raspberry leaves, dandelion leaves. You go to your grocery store and find the spring green salad. It's arugula and dandelion leaves. Those are herbs. Okay? These are foods. And yet when people say herbal remedies, they kind of freak out and they think that it's like witchcraft or something. The first written use of herbal medicine, including instructions for its use to cure diseases, are written on clay tablets dating back past 3000 BC by the Sumerians. The Shenong Benko Jing, which is Chinese, written instructions on how to use over 150 known herbs back then, was written in 2700 BC. The Ebers Papyrus is a medical text from the Egyptians dating to 1700 BC with detailed descriptions of what herbs to use for what ailment. Is that crazy? Foods have been used for healing for over 5,000 years. Plus, I'm sure it's been a whole lot more. Did you guys know that humans have been eating food since human life started? I'm sorry, I know that sounds facetious. Did you know that the first dietary supplement was when the first woman chose to eat the fruit of a tree that was another fruit than what she had been eating before? She supplemented her diet. And then I guess when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the garden, they supplemented their diet again when Adam caught the first fish and decided to incorporate that into his diet, okay? That's what dietary supplement, that's what changing your diet means. I get people all the time ask me, is it okay if I take 4 or 5 products at the same time? Or is it okay if I stack my strips and take it? That's like me asking, I don't know, is it okay if you go to a buffet and put your green beans next to your carrots and then go get some arugula and dandelion salad? And then on top of all that, go eat some ice cream. If you can eat a buffet, then you can take multiple dietary supplements at the same time because they're food. You guys get what I'm saying, right? Food is food. It's safe. Humans have been using food since humans began. And even before that, animals were eating food too. And nobody died from that unless it was food poisoning. Okay, you can die from food poisoning. And now you know the definition of an herb. An herb is just something you throw in your food to give it some flavor, right? Or a spice, an herb or a spice. And yes, we use herbs and spice for medicine. They've been used as medicine for thousands of years. This is what really bugs me, to think that these traditional uses of herbs as medicine have been around for thousands of years, and yet we're forced to call it alternative medicine, and traditional medicine happens to be prescription drugs. I don't understand that. I'm going to give you some stats here. If we go back to that original question, can I take your supplement with my prescription? I would love people to start stating it this way. Can I take my drug with your supplement? Because here's some real statistics about prescription drugs. The National Library of Medicine right here published an article from Peter, oh boy, it's like a German name, Gotzsche, Gotzsche. That's either Dutch or German probably, or maybe it's Polish. Either way, in this article, it has some stats just recently from 2023. Prescription drug use in the United States is the third leading cause of death. And in Europe, by the way, he quotes. In the USA alone, it causes over 380,000 deaths. Now, here's where you're going to freak out. 1/2 of those deaths are from those who took their drug accurately. In other words, they got their prescription drug, did what their doctor told them to do, followed the dose, did everything correctly. That's over 190,000 people died 2023 from the accurate, correct use of prescription drugs. These stats do not include street drugs. These stats do not include fentanyl or laced candy with fentanyl, okay? Those statistics are on the Poison Control Center statistics. The statistics I'm reading you right now are from prescription drugs, okay? The other half of that 380,000 people die from errors, meaning a physician prescribed the wrong drug or a contraindication with another drug, not an herb, another drug, not a dietary supplement or an overdose, but a contraindication with another drug. Many times the physician, when he prescribes you a drug, doesn't ask you what other drugs you're on. And that's where those other, well over 100,000 deaths come from, is your doctor not taking the time to learn what other prescription drugs, or, there's just too many. I won't even blame doctors on this one. They probably wouldn't know if it's a contraindication or not because there's just too many drugs out there, especially for our senior citizens who are on 20, 30, sometimes 40 prescription drugs. How in the world is a doctor supposed to know that the new drug he's prescribing you to help you sleep better at night might kill you because of another drug you take at bedtime, like a blood pressure medication or something? So again, those statistics do not include illegal drugs or the illegal use of fentanyl. These deaths were all legal use of prescription drugs. Now, how many dietary supplement deaths were there in 2023? 0. Versus how many prescription drug deaths? 380,000. The Poison Control Center said that there were 2.421 million, so 2,421,000 close encounters of prescription drug deaths. 2,421,000 phone calls to their center where it was a close call. Now, maybe some of those were suicides, people trying to OD on their drugs, things like that. But either way, it's crazy. So of the 2.4 million phone calls they got, there were 380,000 deaths. Just nuts. I want to go back over the history of prescription drugs just for a minute. It kind of all went back to about 1906. Back then, it wasn't called the Food and Drug Administration. It was the Pure Food and Drug Act, I believe is what it was called in 1906. They wanted to keep drugs out of foods. And by the way, that's why Coca-Cola took cocaine out of Coke. It was in 1906 from the Pure Food and Drug Act. Basically, the government said, Coca-Cola and other companies, you can't put drugs in food anymore. We need to maintain the purity of our food. Wouldn't that be nice if that act was still viable today? But what happened was that act kind of morphed. What really started it was 1970, the Controlled Substance Act. That's where literally you had to go to your doctor now to get a prescription for anything that was not classified as a food. And then thank goodness for the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act that separated pills and capsules that contained wholesome ingredients versus pills and capsules that contain drugs, and basically said this one is food and this one is you need a prescription and is harmful for you, or you need to follow OTC regulations. So that's kind of the history there. So if you think about that history, you guys, it's only about 150 150-year-old history, not quite even that long, of prescription drugs, or what we call petroleum-based, synthetic, isolated, chemically extracted chemicals, all right? And that's what they want. That's new. It's new. When you look at the history of human beings, 10, 20, 30, 50,000 years old, less than 150 years are these chemicals. And that's what they want us to call traditional medicine. And yet the alternative medicine is the herbs. Summarizing what I wanted to talk about tonight, I would love for you guys to kind of look over the stats, go over the things that I talked about, go to the Library of Medicine's website, try to find these, go to the Poison Control Center's website. There was another one here that I didn't quote because it's really irrelevant. This is like street drug use, kills like another 170,000 people every year, fentanyl and stuff like that. But either way, educate yourselves on dietary supplements and just think of the root word. It is a supplement to your diet. In other words, it is food. Now, yes, there are different qualities of what can be adulterated food. Like I've talked about synthetic isolates before, like a lot of the companies have vitamin and mineral supplements that are adulterated out there versus pure food like the LifeWise supplements that are literally just whole food derived ingredients, especially in the One and our Fuel and Balance and things like that, our other products. There is a difference in dietary supplement quality, but when it comes to dietary supplements being harmful, even the crappiest, worst, low-grade supplements are not harmful to you. If they were harmful, the FDA wouldn't have allowed them to be called a dietary supplement, and they would have been fallen under the prescription drug category probably back in 1996 when the senators were debating back and forth whether to have the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act pass or not. And it passed, by the way, overwhelmingly bipartisan. Both sides of the aisle believe that dietary supplements are safe. The data shows that they are safe. So please, when you're out there in the field and you're talking about the LifeWise products in particular, and someone says, well, I shouldn't take that because I'm on a medication, please educate them, inform them, show them this real. And here's the question I want you to counter with. Can I take my toxic medication with your regenerative supplements? I love the word regenerative because instead of calling herbal supplements alternative medicine, we should call it regenerative medicine because it regenerates, purifies, restores, nourishes your body. And we should call traditional medicine, in other words, our prescription drugs, we should call it controlled medication or toxic medication, and then call herbs regenerative medication. So the next time you get that question, just counter by saying, you know, I believe it's okay to take your toxic medication with regenerative dietary supplements. So anyway, thank you for your time tonight. I hope you guys got a little bit of a shock. Trust me, I kind of knew that prescription drugs or drug misuse and things like that was a large leading cause of death. But when I actually looked at the numbers, I was appalled. My very first thought, because I'm a numbers and statistic guy, I kind of know like the population of certain states, like Wyoming's like, you know, just over 1 million. Montana's like 1.2 million. My state's like 3.3 million. I started thinking, oh my gosh, the entire population of Wyoming is wiped out every 3 years from the regular use of prescription drugs. The entire population of the state of Montana is wiped out every 3 years from the regular use of prescription drug. The entire population of my state would be wiped out in 10 years. Isn't that crazy when you start thinking in those numbers? The entire death toll of the Civil War was just over 600,000. And that was a 4-year war. Literally half that number of Civil War deaths occur every single year in the United States from the regular use of prescription drugs. Just let those numbers sink in. It's time for change. It's time for reform. Please, let's get the word out there and educate people that there are viable, clinically proven alternatives to prescription drugs. They're out there. It's just been suppressed for so long. So thanks for joining tonight. Love you guys. Have a good evening. Bye.